So it's Friday, time for another IU history update, but you're probably looking in the background and thinking, John's not on campus. You're correct. I'm up in Chicago. I'm up here for the Pat Tillman Foundation Leadership Summit, which happens every summer, and IU is a university partner, so I get to come to represent the university. And we spend about 3 days meeting all the Tillman scholars and working with them up here in Chicago. Well, last night we went out to dinner about a block away from where the conference is at, and I noticed the sign on the building next door said 7th Appellate Court. And I got to thinking about it, I thought, wait a minute, I know the 7th Appellate Court from somewhere. Got to think about why. Oh, now I get it. Took me a second. I'm going to come back to that. So you probably notice I'm also not wearing a Hawaiian shirt. So I'm going to tie in the 7th Appeals Court and Hawaii and the MAC all in one story, just so that you get a little bit of feel for this. So flashback to the 1890s, and John Watson Foster, as in Foster Quad, IU alumni, was Secretary of State. And some corporate interests in Hawaii had managed to get the U.S. military to intervene on their behalf and overthrow the monarchy of the government of Hawaii and basically take possession of it. By the time word got to John Watson Foster, who was Secretary of State, that this had happened, he hadn't endorsed it, wasn't real sure what to do with it, and had to figure out how to handle it. He wound up getting out of office. A new president was elected, new administration comes in, and he got the task of handing it over to somebody. The person that he handed it over to was Walter Q Gresham. Walter Q Gresham had been a former IU student before the Civil War, had gone on to, had studied law, didn't have enough money to finish law school, went back home, studied under a lawyer, passed the bar that way, became a lawyer, became a politician, and then during the Civil War was a brigadier general. John Watson Foster was a colonel. They both served in the Civil War, some of the same units, everything else. Gresham, of course, who Gresham Dining Hall in Foster Quad is named after. So then Gresham got the task of trying to sort out this Hawaii business, and he was never able to come to terms with the monarchy of Hawaii to return government of Hawaii to them. And part of that was because the monarchs wanted the execution of all the American military and business folks who were involved with the overthrow, and obviously he wasn't going to let that happen, and so Hawaii became a territory and then eventually a state and all that sort of stuff. But how does that connect to the 7th Appeals Court behind me? So Walter Gresham was the very first judge in the 7th Appeals Court when it was created in the 1890s, right before he became Secretary of State. And he issued a lot of rulings having to do with railroads and trust funds and all those sort of things that were happening back then. And in fact, he was known in Chicago fairly well. There's even a Walter Q Gresham Elementary School here in Chicago that's a part of that. So today when I went to go film it, and I went to go walk around this building and look for a spot to do this filming, I looked around and I said, oh, hey, that looks familiar. Sure enough, I checked. Yep, that is a Calder, the same artist that did the one outside of the MAC. So the same artist that does those sculptures has one right outside of the 7th Appeals Court. So there you have a MAC, IU history, Hawaii connection all in one day. So happy Friday. We'll see you next week.